To wrap up. There are no interruptions, no calls. Everything is between the two of us. There's no other party to the conversation, and it's a conversation between us. 2 seconds. Welcome to the conversation. My extra special, extraordinary guest tonight is William K. Langfan, the father of Mark Langfan, who is the chairman of Americans for Safe Israel, AFSI, and a lifetime friend of yours truly, your host Shannon Taylor. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. Always a very gracious, privileged welcome for you, sir.
Thank you. And I feel the same.
And you are how old now?
94.
94. My father just turned 94, but he's a youngster compared to you. Everybody should be in your shape, my God, having your clear mind and your facility for language and for writing and for leadership and for entrepreneurship and for concern for your own people and the world and Israel. Everybody should be in that. It's a lesson to all of us. Bless you. You were born the same year as my mother and father, 1922. That was a hallowed year. Washington Heights, where my mother grew up. And you were service in World War II, a part of the liberation of Buchenwald, the concentration camp, the death camp. And then you began a career as luminous as anybody's in real estate entrepreneur. And you went to the University of South Carolina, graduated in 43, Cornell Law School in 49. Our organization of judges visited Cornell many times, the Ivy League. And then you found yourself at the Sorbonne in July of 45, the same month that my father was getting ready to leave France after hiding from the Nazis and the resistance and the Allied armies, and gathering what was left of his family, 3 hidden children raised as Catholics, to go to Palestine. How did you find yourself in the Sorbonne?
I looked at the board one day and it said "Code to University," and I was waiting to see whether or not I was going to go against Japan. So there were several universities, Oxford, Cambridge, the Sorbonne, and I listed them in that order. And a couple of days later, I was called into the office and was told that you're going to Paris. I said, well, it's about time I received a pass to Paris. Said, you're not getting a pass, you're going to be going to school there. And believe it or not, there was a school set up. It was about for 2 months, 6 days of classes, 3 hours a day, and 21 hours to do anything I wanted.
Well, who could ask for better than that?
Not possible.
To the end of the war?
I was there for the first July 14th celebration that lasted through the whole night.
That was at the end of the war. Everybody was victorious and celebrating, and all the Nazis were being incarcerated and questioned. And you're there at the Sorbonne celebrating for 2 months. And what did you do during those months?
It was mostly going out with women.
What a waste of time! You had all of Paris to see for nothing.
Oh, they were showing Paris to me.
Oh, well,
I had good guides, excellent guides. I want to tell you and the audience about an experience in Palm Beach, where I live.
That's Florida.
Palm Beach, Florida. There is a famous hotel there called the Breakers. And the Breakers, quality-wise, can compare to any hotel in the world. That's been world-renowned ever since it was built. And it was built many, many moons ago. They had a policy until the mid-1960s of not renting to Jews. And the lady came to get a room, and she was asked for her name, and she said, "My name is Betty Cohen." As soon as the clerk heard that, he said there were no rooms available at the Breakers at this moment. At that very minute, a lady came rushing over. "Here are the keys to my room. There's an emergency at home and we must check out." So Betty immediately said, "I'll take that room." And the clerk looked at her and said, "Mrs. Cohen, there is a policy at the Breakers of not to rent rooms to Jews." She says, "I'm not Jewish. I'm Catholic. My family has been Catholic for centuries. The spelling of my name is C-O-W-A-M." The clerk was kind of stunned, and after a minute or so, "Yes, I'm going to test you. Who is our Lord?" And she immediately responded, "Jesus Christ, of course." "And where was he born?" "He was born in a barn." "And why was he born in a barn?" She looks at him and says, "Because bastards like you would not rent a room to his mother."
I was also at the Breakers. There was the Eastern Airlines strike, and there was a hurricane and the worst winter ever, and all those forces each time forced me in Palm Beach, which was mentioned in a debate between the presidential contenders as one of the most successful richest counties in the world or the country, and I was forced into the Breakers, as you said, a stunning place, and the management of the hotel assured me that everything is wonderful in the hotel, and they asked me my name, and I said Shannon Taylor, and they took a step back and they said, "Dear sir, we want to assure you that by now we rent to Jews. You don't have to make up a name." So I showed them my ID that it really was Shannon Taylor, and they were as skeptical with me as they were in the story you gave.
Well, let's get down to Israel.
What did you think of the debate last night between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump in terms of foreign policy?
I don't think that they hit foreign policy as specifically as it should have been hit. They discussed it in general terms, but in a debate, it's really difficult to be very specific, but they made general statements which they've made before, and it didn't amount to anything.
Now, you're a very successful businessman, thank God, and you had a long career as that, not to mention military career and education. Do you believe Donald Trump when he says that everything that he did as a businessman was kosher and proper and smart, and that he would apply the same policies to making America smart in business?
Well, I know Donald personally. I've had business dealings with his father when Donald was a youngster. And I've gotten to know Donald very well. If Donald decides that he wants to accomplish something, he will do it. And not only will he do it, he'll do it more quickly than anybody would have imagined. One of his main successes was to fix and restore the rink, the ice skating rink in Central Park which had been a failure for years and years. Not only did he fix it, but it was way under budget, and with it was about a year earlier for completion than was agreed upon.
Under his schedule and his finance.
So anybody in a competitive society such as ours in the field of real estate who can accomplish what he has accomplished, irrespective of the fact that he had a good start with funds from his father, the fact of the matter is that having the funds to begin with does not necessarily mean that you're going to succeed. He succeeded, and he has been involved in some of the finest construction projects in the United States and all over the world.
Now, you also, being in Palm Beach in Florida, are familiar with the clubs that he has. I was at Mar-a-Lago, beautiful architectural.
I've been there many a time.
And he says that that is a club that is absolutely devoid of any racism and welcomes all members of all kinds, and has been from its inception under his leadership. Do you find Donald Trump to be devoid of anti-Semitism and racism and so on, as he staunchly maintains?
The issue has never arisen in any conversation that I ever had with him. I've never heard of anybody coming forth with any conversation pertaining to him being a racist.
The interesting concept arose because every member of his family is involved or married or dating a Jew, and many members of his company, the hierarchy, are religious Jews, and it was necessary to send out a video about this, that the company and the Trumps are very much Jewishly involved, because there are all these slanders comparing him to Hitler. Now, you fought Hitler and the Nazis. Do you agree with me that this kind of comparison is odious and calumnious and slanderous?
There is not a semblance of fact that anybody has come forward with on this subject that would show that he in any way is anti-Semitic or anti-anything.
Now, you are an expert as well on the Middle East. You're renowned for your studies and your letters and your articles and your research. And you're particularly an expert on the charter of the Palestine Liberation Organization under Arafat, and the origin of any possible peace, any possible overture negotiations, the beginnings of everything in terms of the side we never hear about, the Palestinian terror side, is the charter. And without a change in the charter accepting the Jewish state of Israel and all that goes with it, there is, of course, a mockery to any efforts towards peace. Am I correct?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, the original charter and the Palestinian Liberation Organization, known as the PLO, were created in 1964, 3 years before Israel ever had anything other than the area which the UN gave to Israel when Israel was created. So picture this, 1964, Israel is within her 1967 borders. Jordan is in control of the West Bank and Jerusalem. Egypt is in control of Gaza. And there's Israel, the only remaining piece of territory, and the 29-clause PLO charter was created in 64 simultaneously with the creation of the PLO, and several of the clauses specifically say that the main cause of the charter was to liberate Palestine. And by liberating Palestine, they were using the word liberate, which actually was destroy Israel, because the only area other than what was under the control of Jordan and Egypt was Israel. As a matter of fact, Clause 24 of their charter specifically said very clearly that the PLO had no territorial sovereignty over the West Bank and Gaza. Specifically said that in their charter. So it was only Israel that they were going to liberate Palestine for, and in 1967, when Israel took over the areas of the West Bank and Gaza, quickly there was an amended charter, the 68 charter, and this charter had 33 clauses, and it kept the same clauses as destroying Israel in this charter. So the argument that Israel should go back to 1967 borders is a fallacious argument, because the charter really unequivocally says that they were going to destroy Israel before Israel had the West Bank.
There was also no United Jerusalem, no Golan Heights of Israel, no Judea and Samaria in the 60s when Arafat and his terrorists came into being.
That's absolutely correct.
Or in 48.
And there was relative peace at that time because of the 1949 Armistice Agreement, which was signed by Israel, Egypt, Jordan, and Syria.
Before President Clinton, there was relative peace, we could say.
There was relative peace.
Since then, an intifada.
There were an average of 28 Israeli civilian deaths from terrorism through the years, but it was just one of those things.
My father fought in Israel to 1953, and he said there was nothing to compare with the carnage that happened since they started peace negotiations. Would you agree?
I think that Oslo was one of the worst mistakes that Israel ever was involved in. Why? Because the theory of Oslo was land for peace. That sounds great, if in fact that would happen. But what actually did happen was that Israel conveyed control of large segments of land and never received one day of peace. As a matter of fact, if one of the most important, if not the most important obligation of the Palestinian leadership was to very seriously change their charter, eliminating clauses that called for Israel's destruction, and other clauses that were very onerous. That was an absolute integral part of the whole idea of Oslo. As a matter of fact, when Rabin in September of 1993 responded to a letter written by Arafat, in which Arafat said the most wonderful things in the world about living side by side in peace, and that all of the articles in the charter were either not operable anymore or were going to be annulled.
Nothing came of it.
Not only did nothing come of it, they fooled President Clinton, the subsequent Prime Minister Netanyahu, and of course they fooled Rabin into thinking that they were going to change, or they did change the charter. Not one word of the charter has ever been changed. There is no charter in existence other than the 1968 amended 1964 charter, 33 clauses, and the clause 33 specifically states that no changes can take place in this charter unless 2/3 of the members vote for such a change.
And they never did.
I state unequivocally that no meeting of that type has ever taken place which converted one word of the charter. The only meeting that did take place was in April of 1996, when they did enact a 2-clause charter. And clause 1 said that we intend to modify the charter to comply with the exchange of letters between Arafat and Rabin in September of 1993. That was the only reference to a change that they decided to amend. And then clause 2 very, very specifically said that we're giving this to a legal committee for them to redraft the charter. P.S. No legal committee was ever formed. There is no evidence that any meeting ever took place to change one word of the charter. And as of today, 2016, not one word has ever been changed, although President Clinton says that it was changed, and even Prime Minister Netanyahu says that it was changed.
What does President Obama say?
President Obama doesn't refer to the charter. President Obama says that there must be a meeting between the Palestinians and the Israelis, and the meeting should begin with the understanding that 67 borders was to be the basis of this meeting.
Well, that would be an anathema. That would be the end of the Jewish state.
1967 borders with missiles in the hands of Hamas, and also they would wind up in the hands of the Palestinian under Hamas or anybody else.
Not to mention ISIS.
And as a matter of fact, Hamas has a charter which makes the Palestinian charter seem like child's play. Their charter, Clause 11, states that the Palestinian area is an Arabic Waqf. And the Arabic Waqf means that it belongs to the Arabs and not one grain of sand could be given to anybody else. That's right in their charter.
Well, they make no bones about that, unlike the smokescreen set up by Arafat, and may not rest in peace. Now, we had President Obama meeting with Netanyahu and the other side over the recent week where everybody met at the United Nations who were heads of countries. And Netanyahu invited Abbas to meet with him in the Knesset. Don't you think the first issue at such meetings or at such conferences should be the charter that you mentioned? Shouldn't that be the beginning?
I would say that Prime Minister Netanyahu should ask a simple question. Before you come, would you be kind enough to bring the modified charter pursuant to what the Palestinian leadership said happened? We would like to see a modified charter.
Well, why is Israel ignoring all this? How many battles can we fight for Israel? Thank God Israel's there fighting for everybody, and saving in medicine and in electronics and in technology and in defensive warfare, the whole world. But how many battles like this can we keep fighting against BDS? You know, your son does an amazing job all over the world. But how much can we do?
Very few people are aware of the fact that there are generals and admirals in our armed services who have said words of this nature, that Israel is a combination of the greatest aircraft carrier that the United States has, and in addition, they are a battleship second to none. And that they are the bulwark to protect southern Europe. Without Israel there, Cyprus would overnight become Turkish, and Greece and Italy would be susceptible to conversion into Muslim.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm worried about the Jews. I'm worried about all of us. I thank you, Mr. Langfan. I welcome you back very soon, anytime. And I only wish a lot more felt like you and had the knowledge. This is The Conversation, Shannon Taylor, and a very, very dear friend, William Langfan, and in absentia his son, Mark. May they go on fighting this battle with allies.
Well, I hope we went off all right.
Right. Thank you.
You didn't get any calls yet.
I don't take them. I don't take them.
You let me know what kind of response you get.
Of course, I want to hear from the guest. I get plenty of people calling afterwards, and I say this is circulated.